Welcome to Laptop Radio. Today's topic is from music streaming disruption to the audio revolution. We have Ola Sars with us, and he is the founder and CEO of Soundtrack Your Brand. Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Where are you at right now?
I'm in a dark and cold Stockholm, Sweden. Not as hot as in California, as I hear it.
Yeah, we're like over 100 degrees. It's pretty crazy. We have an earthquake
That's
yesterday as
crazy.
well. Yeah, we have fires and earthquakes. Welcome to California.
I love it over there, but I'd rather be here hearing about the temperature and what's going on over there right now. So I'm chilling here in Stockholm and enjoying Sweden right now.
I'm grateful that it's just temporary, and those too shall pass.
Absolutely.
Tell us about you. What's your story?
Yeah, what's my story? I think my story is trying to make it in the music business for the last 10 years, 10, 12 years. I moved from a previous career more in kind of consulting and banking and stuff like that, and got to a point where I became a cynical person and didn't really like what I saw.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with being a banker, nothing wrong with being a consultant. Don't get me wrong. It's just, for me, it was an opportunity to work with something that I love. That's my passion, and that's music. And there was an instance in my life where I was hanging out with, a lot of my friends were in the music industry, both on the kind of business side of it, but also on the creative side. And we were actually on the island of Ibiza in the Mediterranean outside of Spain. And my best buddy and I were up at night, and we were talking about our lives. And I just realized that he was working with his passion. He's the creative director at Universal Publishing, and he was actually there having fun making money, and I was there spending money having fun. So I thought I'd give it a try to kind of move myself up into the make money, have fun position in life. And jokes aside, it was obviously, I think it was 12 years ago, and that was not the best timing to be thinking about moving into the music industry, because we all know what Napster and file sharing did with the industry. It was completely, in the basement. It was an industry that had taken a significant hit from digital disruption and illegal file sharing and kind of the whole transformation of the industry. And they had not been able to kind of cope with it or manage what was going on with consumers and technology. So there was this opportunity, and then obviously it wasn't only with my heart that I made a move. It was also with my head behind it, because the consumption was going digital right in front of us. Mm-hmm. Distribution was going digital right in front of us. Production was going digital right in front of us. So the whole kind of industry was just transforming into a complete digitization. And I thought that would probably be a good opportunity to make a move, even though it was in a really bad position when I did the move. But here we are 12 years later, and I think we've seen a very interesting development in the industry to the better, in my opinion, to a digitized distribution value chain with transparency and more artists distributing their art, more royalties flowing through in a transparent system, and obviously with its challenges, but a very interesting start to what I think is just the beginning of the digitization of the music industry.
Yeah, so I'm an artist myself, so I understand, even though I don't make sound or music, I do a lot of visual art, and I've been putting a lot of classical music to pair that with my art to create a certain experience or a certain mood. So I wanted to talk about the importance of sound and audio and how that make you feel as a person.
Right. So I think the interesting thing was that my story back to that started with trying to, when you looked at kind of the music industry, which is one part of audio, right? And I'll move quickly to, the bigger idea around audio and our ears and how that affects our brains and the neuroscientific kind of angle of all of this. But let's start with this simple fact that music is a pretty nice starting point when you think about how sound affects our emotions and how it affects the human brain. I was in the music streaming revolution, just trying to digitize the music value chain, which is more, a simpler task. in one instance. And when you went through that process of seeing, the market evolve into all the music in the world at your fingertips, anywhere, anytime, that's a pretty interesting change in the market. And you started thinking about, okay, in a market of abundance where all of that is available for maybe all the consumers in the world with a smartphone sooner or later, what's going to be the interesting part of that? Of course, the interesting part of that equation is being able to provide the right music to the right person at the right time or for the right context in order to deliver the right feeling. So there's this very interesting intellectual, philosophical angle to the simplicity of music, right? So when we were able to solve for the fact of distribution and access to all of this music, then the company or the team that's able to solve for the selection or curation, if you may, providing the right experience would be the interesting player in that value chain. That was my bet 10 years ago. 4 companies later, with some successes and some failures, of course, we're at a point now where actually we can start talking about real-time experience and real-time intelligence around delivering an experience. And we're at a point where that's becoming really cool in our consumer services. Like if you're using Spotify or Apple, I think actually their algorithms are becoming quite good now. They haven't been before, but we're kind of seeing the results in front of us of these enormous experiences when it's all great, right? And then connecting to your question, it has a significant impact on humans and the human brain, sound. I mean, it's been in research, it's been in dark research in terms of, military research, how sound affects people during, everything from interrogation methods all the way to actual psychology, how it helps people come out of depression. And it's been in basic things like music, like how does it make you feel and happy, fall in love and everything. So all the way to commercial usage as well. With the right music, you can actually stay in a restaurant and drink another beer, right? Or you can actually move faster, or your perception of time can change. So sorry for the long response, but you got me ticking there, because it's all about so much more than just music. It's about, how sound and audio can affect humans on an individual level, but also in a collective context.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I think music has ability to affect or create an experience. It's the setting, right? So if I'm watching a horror movie, I get scared because like there's that suspense music and it stops and then like something pops up on the screen and I'm like, scream, right? So
right.
and romantic movies has a different kind of music. So I thought what you're doing is really cool. Of course, we're going to talk about rights and everything later. Tell us about Soundtrack, your brand, and what is your aha moment?
Well, let me connect to what you just actually reflected upon, like watching a horror movie. There's actually just on the basic research side of sound, there's these research efforts where you're showing a horror movie with different music, with the casted music and with happy music, and it's you can just try it online. It's so funny because with happy music you're not going to be scared for sure, and you do all of these. There's lots of experiments like that when you're showing advertising with different types of music and you get different types of neuroscientific reactions in the brain and so forth. So there's nothing new around the fact that music affects us and it kind of contributes or augments a different context. And you don't have to be a scientist to understand what the effect can be on human brain. What am I doing with Soundtrack is coming out of my history of I was actually on one of the co-founders of Beats Music, which became Apple Music later, and I was the Swede that was on the wrong side. I was with the Americans when Daniel was building Spotify. So, but I obviously know Daniel and those guys really well as well, the founders of Spotify. And I've been kind of right in the middle of this sound music / audio revolution, right? And I think just referring to the consumer market, because now I'm doing nothing, more complicated than bringing streaming to the B2B side of business. And I'll get to that. So I'm basically disrupting background music to simplify. And that doesn't sound very sexy, I know, but there's something very interesting about that.
I care about background music because I'll go to an event, stream it on Facebook, And that background music that you think is not important will be rejected by Facebook because of some rights violation. So
Right.
it is important.
No, I mean, it's massive. I mean, what I'm doing, what Soundtrack is that I'm taking my experience from a couple of successful efforts and some not so successful efforts in the consumer streaming space in my career. And I'm applying that kind of knowledge to bringing music to the business context or the background music context. But it becomes so much bigger when you think of it as the public domain. When you think of the dentist, you think of the retailer, you think of the cafe, you think of anywhere where there's a public experience of music, either to soothe you or to make you want to buy more or to make you want to stay and dance and everything. But it's all over the place. And what I realized working in kind of the transition of the consumer music market was that we got hit up by lots of brands at Beats, like hey, this is brand XYZ. How can we relate to music streaming? How can we get streaming into our cars? How can we get streaming into our stores, our cafes? And I realized, oh, okay, that's background music. I haven't thought about that before. I started looking at that industry and I just realized that they were still shipping CDs or doing satellite feeds, and they had not transitioned into the streaming reality. So I kind of took it upon myself to take streaming into the B2B market. And that's what Soundtrack was about. And I've been doing that for now almost 7 years. That's kind of what it takes to do 10,000 licensing deals with publishers and labels worldwide, reinventing the business model for background music and rolling out a B2B SaaS service in 73 markets. So that's what I've been doing. But at the end of the day, what Soundtrack is, it's music streaming for business. And just one reference, when you said music in the background and Facebook stops you, I think just playing a consumer licensed piece of art in your shop is like opening a cinema on your Netflix account. It's the same kind of, that's people, you just don't do that. That's not how you use IP or like relate to IP. If you want to use music to sell more coffee, you need to commercially license that so that the creators get fairly compensated for you using their art to sell more coffee. I think that's pretty fair. And so I'm trying to facilitate that interchange between businesses and the music industry and create incremental growth for the music industry moving forward.
So I think it's about time that we talk about rights, because as an artist, people could copy my art and I will not make any money. And I think as a musician or an artist, you get a lot of that. For background music, it just sounds like a win-win situation for everyone, where everyone gets compensated with royalty rights. The labels that you work with will also be recognized, and then also the business owner. How do you balance those rights?
Well, first of all, streaming as we know it by using Spotify or Apple Music or Amazon or whatever service most of us do, and I'm assuming any kind of your listener base and everyone can relate to that. But that's not the whole world yet, though, by the way. I mean, consumer streaming has just begun, really. Mm-hmm. It's around 300 million paying subscribers today in total and global, and I mean, we're looking to hit $1 billion, $1.5 billion just in 10 years. So just be aware of the fact that streaming has just begun in the bigger world. In the B2B world, meaning I'm hearing music in the public domain, there were no licensing agreements with publishers who represent the songwriters or the composers, which you need to license through, or the labels who license the artists. So just to simplify, there was no construct for going to get a license. So I had to kind of travel around the world and harmonize everyone around what does the business model look like for streaming in a B2B subscription reality. And obviously that was not, I just done the same thing in the consumer space. And I thought that was kind of, almost took me to the brink of catastrophe. But now I had to do it again, but for B2B licensing. So answering your question, what it looks like is just the same as, if you're running a bar in San Francisco and you want to show sports. I don't know the US kind of legislation. I think it's Fox who does NFL or NBA, and obviously they have a business subscription. You're not using your private subscription to show basketball, football, and in Europe, I mean, obviously soccer. Those subscriptions come at a very high price because they know that if you're showing Barcelona, Real Madrid in your bar in Madrid, you're going to have a full house. So it's the same thing with music in store. You need to clear the fact that you have a service provider, and that you're clearing the rights with the labels, so that the artists get paid fairly, and the actual artist who's being played gets played fairly, or the actual songwriter in Idaho, that she gets paid fairly by the licensing deals we have with the publishers, and the reporting to the publishers we do on what's being played, and the reconciliation and remuneration through that flow through. So it's a very complex machine where we're tracking all the music that's being played the whole time. We're updating the metadata on that music, so the right creator is getting fairly compensated on the business subscriptions that I have sold to this bar in San Francisco, for example. So we charge, or the B2B subscriptions in general should be at a higher price point than consumer pricing. So it's around $30, $40. And that obviously provides us with an opportunity to pay the artists and the songwriters way more for that subscription when their art is being played to, sell beer. And that's what I think is a fair interchange and a fair deal. And it creates an opportunity for the artist at the end of the day to get incremental revenue on their art, and it grows the industry on top of a very interesting growth path that we have in front of us anyway with streaming and music moving forward. So obviously being biased, but I think it's a fair deal what I'm doing. I'm trying to kind of create this opportunity for businesses to use music to augment their brand experience, and then charge a premium for that in order to kind of create that incremental flow through for the creative industries.
Don't have to worry about rights. And they have a lot of, it seems like they have a huge selection to choose from as well.
Yeah, we have. I'm not here to talk about my company, but we've done, I mean, you need all the music in the world in order to be, really relevant. And it's 50 million tracks in 73 markets. So the equivalent of Spotify or Apple Music. And that obviously takes some time to get in place.
Which labels are you working with right now?
We work with all the small ones and all the big ones. I mean, usually in the music industry, you talk about the four majors. You talk about Warner, Sony, Universal, and then Merlin as the aggregator for indies, for independent. And then we have, as I told, we have 10,000 direct deals. So,
oh, wow.
So yeah, so and the great thing about business and the public domain is that you could see the brands are very kind of selective on these cool artists that aren't maybe the most known. So kind of independent catalog, it has a higher indexing than kind of the frontline catalog, meaning the big hits, because you want to have a unique experience. And our algorithms and kind of our AI is also built around where brands feed into our service. Kind of the brand positioning prerequisites that or the experience you want to achieve. So you can tell our machines that I want progressive house that's elegant and is 128 BPM and without explicit lyrics. And then we will create that soundtrack for that brand in real time. So we're kind of adding new layers and ways of carving music based on how brands think about the experience that they want to deliver.
Awesome. Yeah, I was reading about your AI. I thought it was really awesome that it could play and create music for you. What kind of music does the AI like so far?
So I'll tell you, I'll try to simplify this so AI, obviously, in my world, it's a way of duplicating human behavior and scaling human behavior. So humans training machines industrializing human behavior at much higher velocity. So what we've done is we've had a method developed by humans and human research on how brands want to filter music. So we've studied a huge sample of brands worldwide and brand owners and how they think about kind of how do I translate my brand into a music brand interpretation. That process has led us to a method on how you would want to filter music based on brand prerequisites, or brand filters, if you may. And those, just to simplify a pretty deep theory, we've added around 25 to 30 new parameters on how to filter music. And we have brought in a team of music scientists and kind of musicologists that have started tagging music based on on their brain's perception of music. And though that training data has been developed during 3-4 years, where now our machines are starting to replicate that in light speed. So giving us the opportunity to actually classify 50 million tracks based on this whole method right now. So you can search for progressive, elegant, hip hop through our algorithms. And if your brand wants that, then we will provide you with that kind of filtering of music. And that filtering doesn't exist anywhere else. And that's how brands think about music. I'll tell you like a classical example. One, I was talking to a restaurant owner actually from New York, Brooklyn, who had two Italian restaurants. And they said, like, we always pay these expensive curators and they never update the playlists, and we pay them thousands of dollars every month, which you know they should be doing. And there's a whole industry of kind of brand curators out there. And believe it or not, I mean, that's what they do. I mean, they ask. Okay. Yeah, I mean, like if you're running 10 restaurants, you really care about the music, and you tend to buy a professional to do it. And but what we're trying to do is we're trying to give them the tools to do that themselves with our AI. And I actually sat down with the restaurant owner, and he's like, yeah, what's your restaurant? What do you want it to sound like? And he obviously started giving me filters, and I could meet all of those filters that he had in this instance. So he was talking about, I want classical music, I want jazz music, I want Italian music, and I was just pushing the filters into our AI. I want it to be elegant, and I want it to be careful, and I don't want explicit lyrics. And I was just giving the filters into our machines in real time, and I served it up in real time. Okay, here's a suggestion, and then I added 3 or 4 artists as a filtering input as well, and I think it was 2 classical Italian composers, and then I added Eros Ramazzotti on top of it, and something Frank Sinatra. So this is I'm feeding this into the DNA of his brand in real time into our machines. That's awesome. And they're spitting out back kind of, this is your soundtrack. And he was like, this is exactly what I want. And all of a sudden he had a taste profile of his restaurants that would live forever and update itself, always be fresh, never repetitive, and until he closes his business, hopefully he can live with that soundtrack. So that's kind of
I need an AI DJ.
I mean, yes. I mean, we're kind of I don't like the discussion of substituting humans with AI, because that becomes, making humans redundant. But in this instance, I think I'm trying to help businesses scale a augmented, improved brand experience in music without having to pay thousands of dollars to a human curator.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I've been playing around with a lot of jazz and classical music and music, a lot with saxophone and some vocal as well for a lot of the art that I've been doing. And I play music sometimes on the show, the radio show. So I understand. I think it would be cool though if we do have an AI assisted DJ, so we can say, hey AI DJ, today I'm feeling a little bit of blues, and then also like the best blues that I personally like for me. I think that would be super, super cool.
I mean, we have that. I mean, our APIs, and we have a lot of brands integrating with our APIs, and they can feed in weather data. They can feed in how many people are in the restaurant. They can feed in what's trending on your local market in terms of within your filters. They can feed in staff prerequisites or preferences, who's working. And in real time, you adopt the brand sound, but to what's going on in the context around them, but still on brand. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And back to the fact that it sounds all of these fancy words with AI, but at the end of the day, the right music at the right place at the right time, that's what we're trying to provide them with in order to run their business and not having to worry about the music.
I think some nightclubs might need this.
I mean, you really understand what I'm doing when you walk into a place and the music is wrong, like when it's terrible, because I mean, these entrepreneurs are spending their lives and their day and nights running their business, and then they screw up the music, and like it's just terrible. People will leave.
You can see how Starbucks is creating brands is their music. I mean, they have soundtrack. They have even in their app, they basically list the artists and everyone. So because they focus on the experience, right? And It's true. Like if I'm going, say, shopping, it's just funny because I haven't been into a store for a long time. And if you have really calming music, it might help. And, like you don't want to use anxious music or
Mm.
fighting music when you're thinking. I mean, I
No,
think it does have an impact on your mind and your likelihood of buying and purchasing something or your experience.
I'm, yeah, we're doing a lot of research the whole time, working with different faculties around the world. But this specific one was the biggest field research effort in the world on music impact on top line revenue, actually, together with a big US based fast food chain. I'm not going to mention any names. And we applied our model to their brand and kind of their retail network. And we were able to significantly prove 9% impact on top line revenue when applied versus what they were doing today. And that was done by independent researchers. And it sounds amazing, right? Because 9% for a company like that is, that's billions of dollars.
Yeah.
I was in Chicago presenting it for them, and it's such a no-brainer when you think of it. Like, of course you need to think about this. If you're thinking about digitization of retail, and how does physical retail compete with the digitization that Amazon is driving or anything like what, well, they're competing with experience, right? That's the main kind of thing that the physical experience has versus the digital experience. And music is a major component in that kind of competitive edge. Hence, they need to pay attention to how they're kind of augmenting their experience through sound.
Yeah, and if you really think about it, I think companies like Amazon needs to be physical as well. After they basically successfully competed with a lot of mom and dad's store, because it's cool to buy something online conveniently, but there's just certain things that you need to try on. We need to physically eat something. So we still really need that connection, that realness, that physicalness, right? So I think just as physical merchants, well, I call them merchants because I used to work for a big payments company. Just like merchants need to, I think need to be more digital. I think digital companies also need to be more physical. And it's just really merging of that physical experience that's really important, right? So I think music plays a really vital part of that. It's creativity as well, like bleeding edge. You really need to integrate that to create that feeling, that experience for humans.
Right,
And
and
on machines.
music is there. There's like with AI, and like real time technology, it's a very low marginal cost to adopt the experience in real time. You can really, if you're coming in on a rainy day in Seattle and the Seahawks lost the day before, and I don't know what's going on. I mean, something terrible is going on CNN or Fox News, and then like the context is there. It's like if you can react to that and be kind of smart about the experience that you're delivering, that you're relevant, and you can meet people and what's going on, not just the brand experience or trying to drive in, behavior through neuroscientific research and kind of, okay, if we play this, they move faster, blah, blah, but just trying to be relevant.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a DJ does. Like when you walk into a place and you have a great DJ and that really knows what's going on and kind of delivers an experience and a vibe, and it's amazing, right? We've been there. We've all been there when it's like, wow,
Yeah,
she
you
just
have a
nailed
lot of,
it. She just connected to the crowd. She just connected to what's going on in the world right now, and she just took us through this musical experience. If you can provide that to brands in real time, you're gonna help them, really, really, build a physical experience that people need. I mean, we need to meet each other, even after COVID or during COVID, or
yeah.
even if Amazon can solve all our problems in terms of what we need to consume. We want to be out there to have fun and fall in love, right? So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
what better than music?
Yeah, we need to create memories, not just experience, but to really create positive memories because life is hard, or it can be hard. What is your vision for the company, like for the next 5 years?
Well, back, back from kind of the romantic philosophical side of why I love working with music and kind of the privilege of being able to work with music, to kind of my other side of the brain is kind of the business opportunity that I'm going after. It's very harsh. The reality that we have a music market that is basically saved by streaming from, when I entered 10 years ago.
Mhm.
We have a global music market that's, moving towards a $70 billion global market. That's including recorded publishing and live. That market within the next decade, 2030, is estimated to double. So from a $70 billion market to a $140 billion market. The main driver, and that's a pretty big global market, like if you look at verticals, and the major driver of that growth, by the way, which is bigger than the music market has ever been before. I mean, at its tops, it was around 65 or 68 or something. So we're right back where, during the happy 80s and the Madonna CDs, like on that time, like we're back on those days in terms of the size of the market, but it's going to double. It's, because it's reaching a broader market. It's reaching the global economies, including China, and it's subsidizing radio, which meant zero revenues for artists. So it's great. It's building a bigger cake for the creative industries. And my plan is to dominate the B2B side of that next decade of growth. And I think that background music can contribute around 15 to 20% incremental on top of that $140 billion mark. So I'm going after a very big market opportunity. I think just the fact of selling subscriptions to businesses is a major improvement for the music market. It's incremental growth for the music market. But if I could also move it from just buying music as a utility, but also buying music is actually driving business or, driving experience and actually helping brands drive sales, then I think I'm unlocking the real value in this potential. I mean, then it's not a music startup anymore. Then it's, a big data kind of commercialization engine powered by music. And then if I can add the audio kind of revolution to that as well, sound, and maybe move beyond music into news or whatever type of sound experience that could happen in the public domain outside of music, I don't know, then I can further broaden my business as well. So I think music is the kind of logical first step, and it's going to be a big enough task to dominate that market globally in 10 years, but maybe we'll have book readings in stores, maybe we'll have news readings in store, maybe we'll have just soundscapes to make us feel better in libraries. Maybe we'll have, I don't know what we'll have, soundscapes that calm us down ahead of a dentist's visit, and then, or in hospitals, things like that, where actually sound and audio provides an effect in the public domain that specific context want to achieve.
And what are some of your challenges that are not confidential, of course, and asked that you would want to see for the company? Do you want more partnerships? Do you just want more partnerships with labels? Do you want more artists?
I think we spent almost 4 years on a plane building relationships and kind of harmonizing all the creators. Not the easiest people to kind of all get to work together around a bigger idea and kind of agree on who keeps what in a commercial. But now 10,000 deals later, I think we have a pretty fair setup where I'm sharing a significant part of the revenues that I'll generate from selling background music subscriptions. But I think now the company stands in front of kind of commercialization of this opportunity, and that obviously goes into kind of just as a tangible business challenge, penetrating the US SMB market. So you mentioned you work for a payment provider, or you referred to merchant, so I'm assuming it's someone I know. And the brand of and what they were able to achieve in terms of penetrating US SMB market is that's super hard. And I'm a small Swedish startup with 75 employees who build amazing product and have this unique position. The actual go to market into SMB US, yes, I would need help doing that because I'm not going to figure that out by myself. So I have kind of the fun commercialization challenge ahead of me, but I'm in no means claiming to be an expert in anything of those things. And kind of going to market with a B2B SaaS company into the US, into the European markets, that's kind of where I need to learn quickly. I've never done B2B in my life before, by the way. I've always been kind of a B2 business to consumer guy.
Yeah.
And now here I am with a B2B company. I don't even know how to do
Yeah,
marketing would be.
yeah, it's kind of funny because I think B2B is easier than B2C because B2C like just penetration into the consumer market is just like a different story versus like B2B, at least you know who the businesses are, and it just has different pros and cons, but it's kind of fun though.
Maybe you can help me. Maybe you can help
No,
me.
I'm just saying it's kind of cool, but it's kind of fun. It's a little bit different. I think a lot of people say that B2C is a little bit harder. You mentioned something that I really love, and that's the difference between music, audio, and sound. A lot of people think that those are the same, but they're different, and they're like a different experience. Can you like elaborate more on that?
Yeah, I think trying to keep it once again like tangible and Swedish and boring. I think just bringing the example of what Spotify did with. I think Daniel is brilliant. By the way, I think he has built the global leader in streaming from a small startup in someplace northern Europe that nobody's heard of, and he's done it in 10 years or 15 years, and he's competing with Apple, Amazon, and winning. So they're doing something right at Spotify. And I think the great thing that he did was that he focused on music. He focused on music, music, music. Nothing kind of distracted him from the laser focus of providing the best customer experience for music and streaming. And when he kind of concluded that, he didn't kind of get carried away during the first waves of success. He just kept focusing. And now, 15 years later, he's opening up the audio opportunity, meaning in his world, podcast. I think that's a very tangible explanation of from music to podcast, AirPods in your ears the whole time, one platform to serve them all, right? So that kind of explains the consumer experience, where podcast is the natural kind of progression. For businesses, it could be, I think, more into soundscapes and actually providing what we talked about, the effect on the humans there in terms of the neuroscientific reaction. And there's a lot of interesting research actually from your university as well. From Stanford, there's a team up at kind of doing music research on from the neuroscientific perspective and all kind of a lot of schools in the US and Europe are looking at it, and they've been looking at it from marketing research all the way to kind of just healthcare research. But the thing is that with sound, you can find ways of affecting the brain in real time, calming people down, which is actually this is actually, you're laughing, but it's where elevator music came from. When they started up with elevator music, which is actually a joke that I said, I told my mother that I'm redoing elevator music for her to understand what I'm doing. So, and she could understand that. But they played music in elevators because the mechanical sounds kind of made people super nervous when elevators were coming out. So they played music to calm people down so they would dare walk into the elevator. That's kind of historical example of what I'm talking about now. Imagine if you could scale that into airplanes. Imagine if you can scale that into hospitals. Imagine if you can scale that into, it's dark in Stockholm. I haven't seen the sun in 60 days, which happens here.
Yeah.
I walk into somewhere and I get like light therapy with music therapy. I mean, I think that's just answering your question. I think that's the augmentation and the expansion. But once again, I will not do any mistakes learning from Daniel. I would stay laser focused on music and kind of disrupting background music until we finalize that first task. No,
I'm just asking you because I know that calm music and other kinds of audio were pretty hot 4 years ago because of digital goods. And so then a lot of people really don't know the nuances between the different kinds of sound. It's just kind of funny. I listen to calm, boring music sometimes. So I'm just laughing because it's just so true. I thought those weren't cool for a while. And having been to and thrown into different experiences with music, I kind of like it, I think like even if I'm at Coachella, there's like different stages and each stage has different music, and I would like hop around, I would listen to a music with a lot of visual effect and electronic music or some music, and it was just amazing. And then another stage, you would listen to a vocal artist. And then another one would be a DJ or something. And those gave me different kinds of experiences. And it's kind of weird because I love them all. And I think audio and different kinds of sound and music, of course, and background music especially, because we don't subconsciously recognize that, but because they're in the background, that those are kind of impacts us in a different kind of way, because it subconsciously just impacts us because it's there.
Yeah, I mean, another easier example, kind of a next stage for us is that we're already doing. Imagine if we can move kind of a Coachella live experience into a retailer as just one, like, okay, I'm retailer X, I'm the coolest fashion brand or the coolest cafe brand. I do a deal with Coachella, and through the Soundtrack platform, we're sending Coachella live in all our stores
Yeah,
in
that's
real
cool.
time. So that's just one enabler by rolling out a streaming platform. Or you know what, if you're a member of the Juice Bar X kind of a customer club, on Saturday come down because artist X is releasing their new single exclusively for us. Those are just simple tactical things where you can kind of unlock value between an artist and a brand, and a really cool experience for the consumers. And it sounds kind of cliche and so forth, but I think those types of activations can help further the royalty flow through to artists, and kind of connect brands with bands and fans, you know. All the three of them.
So just to rephrase what you said, you're basically teleporting music. If there is a live Coachella like this year somewhere, like right now in Palm Springs, there's different stages. Say I own a restaurant in New York. It's called Go Fish or something because I really love koi. In the Go Fish restaurant, I have a deal with you, and I want all my customer to have that live experience of Coachella at the restaurant that day. Okay, because it's the same time. So I would be able to stream Coachella music or the Coachella experience in real time at that restaurant while I am eating at a fancy restaurant. Because Go Fish will be fancy with lobster and art. Some food is kind of like art because they decorate it really well. That would be possible.
Yeah, I mean, all of those kind of connecting with the creative industry. That's what I'm doing. At the simplest form, it's helping them select the right, sequencing of music, but then augment that into live experiences. Or one example that we have is that we bring in, it can be an artist, a musical artist, but it could also be an artist in terms of a painter or something else, selecting her or his favorite 10 tracks and presenting it. These are the tracks that have inspired my new movie. These are the tracks that inspired my painting. These are the tracks that I listened to while bicycling Tour de France. So all of these things are soundtracks from people's, for context that become interesting. So that's just another way of contextualizing music to create interest or engagement. So all of that on top of a global distribution with access to all the music with the right flow through of royalties is what I'm providing. Then kind of let the world go crazy on top of that.
And the world will go crazy. What is one thing that you wanted to share that I have not asked you?
Back to a little bit of building companies. I think maybe that's kind of one thing why I'm here. Talking about, it's my fourth music startup, perseverance and kind of persistency of fighting through the challenge of if you want to build a company within your passion area, like music, for me, it's not the easiest thing. And I think what I want to share is probably all of my failures and but getting back there and kind of believing in the bigger vision here that this market will change. And it's not about me being a romantic music lover and like I'm going to work in the music industry, whatever, even if I'm not getting paid. It's like, no, this is going to change. This is going to provide a massive market opportunity. So it happened for me in the consumer space. I mean, we sold Beats to Apple for $3 billion. And that was something, Beats Music, that I co-founded. And then here's B2B again. I've had so many setbacks in trying to get the music industry to understand that we should actually, ask businesses to pay us properly when they use our music. And everyone thinks just background music is the ugly duckling. It's not interesting enough for me to discuss with you. But just kind of what I want to share is like, keep pushing. And this, like, if you want to get there, keep pushing if you believe in it. And in music, actually, I think there's going to be more opportunities moving forward right now. And people would say, I can't make a living in music, or like, I think it's a massive industry. I mean, it's going to move from 70 to 150 billion dollars. We need a lot of smart people in there changing it, because there's a lot of legacy and there's a lot of old school people who don't want it to change. So I think what I want to share is like, come join me in the party, and let's transform this industry with smart people and people who are, who have the understanding of like, if you want to change something, you need to create kind of a sharing system or an interchange of value where everyone wins. And I think that's what you need to do in the music industry. I think there's lots of opportunity, and I think for smart people and kind of in the context of this show and from Stanford and kind of the surroundings of that, I think don't think about the industry as something. The music industry is something that is, you can't get a real job. I think there's a lot of real jobs in there, and there's going to be a lot of opportunity.
Talking to you, I think your persistence is amazing. And I think being in the music industry with a lot of prominent key players could be very difficult. When people tell you that something is impossible, or when you want to give up, like, how do you talk to yourself?
I talk to myself in the mirror.
Well, I mean, you completely understand what I'm asking you, because there's just no way a man who is creating an industry like this, just flying a lot, of course, talking to many people who may say no a lot, getting a lot of rejections, of course, and building something from scratch with no market and creating that market. There has to be at least one time that you wanted to give up and say that, hey, this is impossible, right? So how do you tell yourself to get back up and keep going?
No, I mean, yes, there's been multiple times where, it's over. Like, we're running out of money. We can't get it to happen. Like, people, it's never going to change. The value chain is protected for reasons by people who don't want it to change. Like, I'll tell you 1,000 stories about that.
Yeah.
But I think what you need to do is you need to have the intellectual conviction initially. And I actually have also kind of a business mindset and a business schooling and my background, and I've done my research, and kind of I fall back to the statistical decision material that made me enter into this. And it sounds like, okay, I thought it was passion or like never giving up, or no, it's actually back to the numbers. And also back to the fact that every time I see these people who want to say no, I realize that these people are going to be disrupted, and these are the people that I am actually changing, or I'm going to make them step away. And kind of, because what we're providing is better than what's here today. Because in the instance of my little market, background music, it's broken and it's completely corrupt, if I may say, because people are selling background music, but they're not flowing through the royalties through the artists, which in my opinion is absolutely unacceptable. So I'm on a quest, or I'm basically out there fighting a war to bring transparency to this. And it's not because I want to sound noble or anything. It's like, I want to win, and people who want to kind of retain a broken model in this world we live in. I mean, sooner or later, technology is going to win and transparency is going to win.
You're basically disrupting the people that reject you.
I mean, we're just pushing them along, right, towards a better future, or we're pushing them aside, because some of these people actually have to get pushed aside because they've been breaking this market for too long. So I don't know if it answered your question, but it is actually back to the pure kind of business analysis I did when I entered into the market, and kind of, do I still believe in the thesis of this market disruption? Yes, I do. Okay, let's get to work.
I hear a lot of that in you, and I just wanted to formally ask you, because I think it's really the human aspect of that is sometimes more important, because I think the people who build the company sometimes make the company, and they create the future of that industry. When I'm talking to you, I sense that. So I just wanted to ask you, and I thought that was cool. Anyways, where can we find Soundtrack Your Brand?
You can find the service soundtrackyourbrand.com or soundtrack.fm and just check it out. I mean, it's not relevant really if you're not running a business, but we got some research in there and some stuff that we're doing that's kind of intellectually fun as well. So if you're not looking for it, but you can read about the company obviously on the website.
Awesome. Last question. What is your favorite music personally?
You didn't tell me you were going to ask me that. I don't like that question. I don't like that question.
The show is about music.
I sound like such a snob when I answer it, like some European douchebag up in Stockholm who only listens to like so niche stuff. That's not the case.
I've been to Germany and Europe and Germany and some other places as well. And I love the concert and the music there. So I think the taste in music, it depends on where you live, but it's also universal as well, right? So it could be anything, but I'm just curious.
No, okay. I'll be just very, very to the basics. I mean, it is actually amazing using consumer services right now, and I'm obviously using Soundtrack myself. Because I'm testing our algorithms, day and night, creating new soundtracks, creating new soundscapes, and kind of seeing how it's delivering upon the experience. So I'm pretty much all over the place right now with what I'm listening because I'm testing. But I think this is a more interesting response to your question. Currently, I'm testing on our app classical music and how our algorithms actually classify classical music, and how we can filter classical music. And I'm not schooled in classical music, but I've read up and really I'm interested in classical music right now, and also classical electronic music right now. So right now I think I've spent the last 48 hours filtering into the filters on my service, electronic, elegant, classical music, and listening to that in different type of filters, because I'm also adding an artist or a composer to that. And it's amazing because I've never really discovered classical music more than through friends or through concerts that I've kind of pushed myself to go to, or my aunt who was a big classical music listener. And all of a sudden I'm completely blown away by this new place that I found because I'm testing my service. So I think like almost to the point where I want to go to Berkeley and, study or pick up
Berkeley. Oh yes.
I don't know. Or move to Vienna and go to, the classical European schools. But it's not what you were looking for in your question, but I think it's more like what an amazing, treasure quest or a treasury we have here with all of these music styles that you've never really had time to kind of explore. And here I am working with it, and I'm actually getting paid for it. And I'm back to, 10 years ago on Ibiza. Can I actually make money and have fun? I'm enjoying it so much right now. And next week is jazz for me. So I'm going to be running through jazz, which I'm a bit more schooled on. But hey, look, that's my job. I got to run the business and fundraise and stuff, but I get to listen to, algorithmically, curated classical music for days.
It's cool. I've been listening to classical as well, because I told you I was mixing and putting music into my art, and so I'm like listening to different kinds of music. I mean, including Shakespeare. And sometimes if you listen to the show, I'll play classical music with some of the talks. It's cool. It's really good music.
I mean, I'm just punching in now in my app here, like classical, and I'm putting some acoustic. I'll put an acoustic filter, and I'll put a traditional filter, and I'll put an elegant filter, and I'll put a dreamy filter, and I'll pick stuff that's only from the 1970s.
Oh my God.
and I will put a energy level of low and very low. And I'm gonna ask my machines for this right now. So this is kind of the stuff that I do when I test the service, and I get to explore these small little nuggets, diamonds of music.
Wait, what song
And
do we
these,
get? What song do you get right now?
let's see here.
I'm just curious. I mean, I love jazz. I've been using jazz and blues, but recently I've been using a lot of classical music, and which is kind of funny because you'll be playing with my art, and then all of a sudden you're here like.
Okay, I'll play it for you. Let's see what we got. We started off with that one. Let's see here. Volodos by Brahms, which I actually know. There's a Bach. So
That's
it
awesome.
became quite actually some classical, really classics to start off with on that filter. So very classical mainstream, I think, was where I ended up on that one.
Awesome.
But I mean, I'll dig into that.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me, and enjoy your hot day in California. I'm gonna go to bed here in Stockholm.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.